Sagittarius. You're drained by family clashes. Heal with Zodiac wisdom. It starts quietly, the same morning sunlight spilling across the kitchen counter, the same aroma of coffee rising, yet something feels different. The air is thick, heavy with last night's words that still echo between walls. You sit there, hands wrapped around a mug that's gone cold, wondering when love began to feel like labor. Once family meant laughter, warmth, and movement. Now it feels like walking through emotional smoke. Everyone tense, everyone tired, and you, Sagittarius, burning from both ends of the candle. You were born to inspire, to uplift, to believe that understanding can mend anything. Yet lately your optimism feels fragile. You find yourself apologizing more than speaking, silencing your truth to keep the peace, and feeling invisible in the home you once built with such devotion. You've tried every version of calm, listening deeper, explaining gently, loving harder. But the more you give, the emptier you feel. And maybe it's not just you. Across homes and continents, families are fraying under pressure. In the US, midlife women are quietly carrying the emotional weight of generations. Aging parents, anxious teens, partners who don't quite understand. In Europe, the web of family support that once held communities together has thinned to 68%, leaving women like you navigating a wilderness of expectations alone. But what if this exhaustion isn't failure? What if it's the universe, your ruling planet Jupiter, whispering that your spirit needs recalibration? What if conflict is not punishment, but the soul's invitation to grow? Sagittarius, your arrow has always sought truth, and maybe that truth begins here. Love can coexist with boundaries, and peace does not require perfection. The stars are not asking you to fix anyone. They're asking you to remember yourself, the woman beneath the roles, the seeker beneath the mother, the adventurer who once believed that every storm carried meaning. You've healed others with your light for so long. Now it's your turn to heal through it. So take a deep breath. The tension in your home isn't the end of your story. It's the breaking open of a new one. The planets are aligning not to burden you, but to free you. This is where exhaustion transforms into awakening. This is where love becomes lighter again. Chapter 1: The Sagittarian Fire That Burns Too Bright. You've always been the light in your home. The spark that kept everyone moving forward when life felt heavy. You were the storyteller, the peacekeeper, the dream builder. And yet, lately even your fire feels tired. It's as if your inner flame, once brilliant and warm, has become too bright, burning faster than your soul can replenish. Sagittarius, your gift has always been optimism. But when optimism becomes obligation, it turns to ash. You were born under Jupiter's generous sky, wired to give, to guide, to see potential in everyone. But the truth that no one tells you is that even light needs rest. Even a fire needs to breathe. And when you spend years tending to everyone else's comfort, your children's moods, your parents' needs, your partner's expectations, it's easy to forget that your energy, too, has limits. The universe is speaking to you now through your body and your emotions. The headaches, the sleepless nights, the racing heart during another family argument. These aren't random. They are cosmic whispers, telling you it's time to stop running on empty. Studies show that women in midlife experience record highs in chronic fatigue and anxiety, particularly those sandwiched between caregiving roles. And yet, Sagittarius, your exhaustion isn't just physical. It's spiritual. It's the quiet ache of a soul that's been giving without receiving. I want you to meet Marissa. She's 53, a Sagittarius mother of 2 grown kids. Once she was known for her laughter, the kind that filled every corner of a room. But now she confides that most evenings end with silence or slammed doors. It's like they don't hear me anymore, she said, eyes glossy with unspoken grief. I try to say something loving, and somehow it turns into a fight. Her words trembled, not from anger but from heartbreak. I don't know when I stopped being the guide and became the problem. What Marissa didn't realize, and what so many Sagittarius women forget, is that conflict doesn't erase love. It only reveals where communication has outgrown its old form. The very same fire that once fueled laughter can now spark tension because your family, like you, is evolving. And evolution always begins in discomfort. Astrologically, this may coincide with Saturn or Uranus transits challenging your Sagittarius placements. Saturn demands maturity and structure, boundaries you've avoided for too long. Uranus shakes everything that feels safe, pushing you toward authenticity and freedom. Together they can feel like chaos, but they are sacred chaos meant to wake you up. These planetary lessons don't punish, they rewire. They're showing you that not every disagreement is a failure. Some are cosmic invitations to pause, to listen, to grow. When conflict erupts, you don't need to win the argument. You need to reclaim your center. Imagine Jupiter, your cosmic guardian, expanding a golden light within your chest. This is your truth space, your anchor. When voices rise, focus there. Before you speak, breathe in the mantra. I am the calm within the flame. Say it again. Feel how your heartbeat steadies, how your words soften. Sagittarius fire doesn't just burn. It illuminates. And yes, it's true that across the world, families are struggling to stay connected. In the US, studies show midlife women carry emotional responsibilities that erode mental health faster than any job or physical demand. In Europe, the safety net of shared caregiving is fading, leaving mothers feeling unsupported, unseen. But, beloved, you were born with cosmic resilience. The same Jupiter that expands galaxies also expands hope, yours included. This week, I want you to try something radical. Stop trying to fix every disagreement. Instead, practice what I call the 24-hour flame pause. When an argument begins, choose silence. Step away. Breathe. Revisit the conversation only when your inner fire cools. You'll find that clarity often hides behind the smoke of emotion. And when guilt whispers, "But they'll think I don't care," remind yourself. Caring is not the same as carrying. Your family doesn't need your exhaustion. They need your energy, your wisdom, your grounded truth. By protecting your fire, you teach them how to protect theirs. So tonight, as you rest, place your hand on your heart and say gently, "My fire heals, it doesn't destroy. My voice enlightens, it doesn't wound. My love expands, it doesn't exhaust." You are not the problem, Sagittarius. You are the pulse of healing itself, learning at last to let your light warm without burning. Chapter 2: Uranus and the Power of Redefinition. Every few decades, Uranus, the cosmic disruptor, moves through a sign and reshapes how we love, speak, and connect. When his energy touches Sagittarius, change feels electric, sudden, uncomfortable, liberating. It's as if the universe is shaking your shoulders gently but firmly, saying, "Wake up. You can't keep doing things the old way." And though it feels unsettling at first, Uranus isn't here to destroy what you've built. He's here to update it. Family tension is often a reflection of outdated emotional wiring. The rules you once used to guide your children, kindness, fairness, honesty, may no longer fit the world they're growing into. Uranus exposes this gap. He brings those moments when your words land wrong, when advice turns into resistance, when love feels like a foreign language. But beneath the friction, something profound is happening. Everyone is learning how to speak truth again. For Sagittarius women, ruled by Jupiter, truth has always been sacred. But Uranus asks you to expand your definition of truth, to see that being right is less important than being real. That's the magic of this transit. It doesn't demand perfection, only presence. When you stop trying to control the story, you begin to understand it. I once worked with a woman named Elena, a 49-year-old Sagittarius mother of a strong-willed teenage daughter. Their fights were daily, about everything from curfews to careers. "She doesn't respect me," Elena sighed. "She treats me like I'm ancient." During a session, I asked her what Uranus was teaching her. She laughed through tears. "Probably humility," she said. Then she paused. "Or maybe to listen without needing to be right." That week she tried something new. Instead of confronting her daughter during arguments, she invited her for a walk. They agreed that for 1 hour, neither would interrupt the other. By the end of that walk, something softened. "We didn't solve anything," Elena told me later, "but I finally saw her, and she finally saw me." That's Uranus in motion. Not fixing but freeing. Astrologically, Uranus in Sagittarius represents radical compassion, the courage to express yourself differently. Instead of fiery lectures, it invites philosophical curiosity. Instead of reacting, it encourages reflection. This energy wants you to innovate your relationships. Try family reset nights with no criticism, only sharing. Hold eye contact for 30 seconds longer than usual. Write your loved one a note instead of a speech. Tiny shifts open cosmic doors. Uranus also rules technology, a subtle reminder that connection can exist beyond proximity. If your children or parents live far away, embrace digital rituals. Morning voice notes, shared playlists, or video dinners under the same moon. These gestures may seem small, but they restore emotional gravity. In a world where families drift apart, intention is what keeps orbits aligned. When Uranus squares your natal Jupiter, something many Sagittarius women experience in midlife, you'll feel a tug-of-war between comfort and courage. Old versions of yourself, the fixer, the peacekeeper, the endless giver, will resist change. But this tension is sacred. The universe is asking, what if harmony could exist without exhaustion? Here's a practice to ground Uranian energy when conflict arises. Pause before responding. Imagine your heart surrounded by a circle of light. Ask silently, what's the most loving way to express truth right now? Then speak. Slowly, gently, with the warmth of Jupiter and the courage of Uranus. Conflict is no longer the enemy. It's communication under construction. You are being asked to build bridges where old walls once stood. Remember, Sagittarius, Uranus rewards bravery. He doesn't want you to suppress emotion. He wants you to innovate it. To replace tired scripts with fresh honesty. To turn arguments into conversations that evolve your soul. So tonight, under the vast, unpredictable sky, whisper this affirmation. I welcome change as my teacher. I redefine connection through compassion. Every shift brings me closer to peace. Let those words move through you like electricity turning into light. Because that's what Uranus does. He doesn't destroy your story. He rewrites it in a higher key, until love sounds clearer than ever before. Chapter 3: The Fire That Heals Instead of Burns. There's a moment every Sagittarius woman knows too well. When you've given so much, said so much, tried so much, that even your patience begins to smoke at the edges. You feel the heat building in your chest during another argument, the words rising like sparks you can't quite contain. You love your family deeply, but lately that love feels entangled with frustration. The Sagittarian fire that once inspired now threatens to consume. Yet your element, fire, was never meant to destroy. It was meant to transform. Fire is sacred in astrology. It purifies, clarifies, and renews. When directed consciously, it doesn't burn bridges. It lights pathways. And this, dear Archer, is your task now, to learn to burn clean again. Your ruling planet, Jupiter, expands everything it touches: joy, passion, even anger. When your flame grows unchecked, it can ignite impatience, criticism, or guilt. But when paired with awareness, that same energy becomes radiant warmth, the kind that heals everyone it touches, including you. Try this. The next time your chest tightens with anger, close your eyes and picture your inner fire. See it as a golden flame inside your heart. With every breath in, that flame steadies. With every breath out, it releases smoke, resentment, fatigue, frustration. Whisper softly, my fire is sacred. My warmth heals. This is called fire meditation, and it's one of the most powerful rituals for Sagittarius women in emotional turbulence. You can practice it anytime, after conflict, before sleep, or during your morning tea. The goal isn't to extinguish your fire, but to teach it rhythm. Fire needs oxygen just as you need space, emotional space, spiritual space, to breathe again. Let's return to Marissa for a moment. After years of trying to control every argument, she started lighting a single candle each evening after dinner. Instead of scrolling through her phone, she stared at the flame for 5 minutes, breathing slowly. It sounds silly, she said, smiling, but that candle became my therapist. When her son snapped at her later that week, she didn't react. I saw the fire in him too, she said, and I realized he's just learning to manage his light, like I am. That's what healing looks like, Sagittarius. Not perfection. Presence. When you soften your reactions, you create a ripple of calm through your household. Your fire steadies the room. Your composure rewires the atmosphere. This is energy work at its most practical. No incense needed, just awareness. Across the world, women are rediscovering this elemental wisdom. Research shows that women who practice daily mindfulness or short ritual pauses reduce family conflict by up to 40%. And yet, modern society rarely teaches women to stop. It celebrates endurance, not equilibrium. But you, Sagittarius, were not born to endure. You were born to expand. Expansion requires lightness, laughter, and rest. The global data mirrors what you've already felt. Women are carrying invisible emotional labor, their vitality draining under unspoken expectations. In the US, midlife burnout among caregivers has reached record highs. In Europe, even where social systems once offered relief, family cohesion has fallen to 68%. These numbers aren't statistics, they are stories like yours, echoing across continents. But they also carry a hidden truth. If women share the same exhaustion, they can also share the same awakening. That awakening begins with one radical act: reclaiming your energy as sacred. Before you can heal family tension, you must heal your relationship with your own flame. That means resting without guilt, saying no without apology, and choosing joy without justification. Each time you honor your energy, you teach everyone around you how to respect it too. Here's a simple exercise. Call it the hearth practice. Each evening, sit somewhere quiet and imagine the day's energy returning to you. Visualize every word, every emotion you've given away flowing back as golden light. Feel it gather in your chest like warmth from a familiar fire. Whisper, "I call my energy home." Repeat it until you feel lighter, fuller, and ready to rest. Your fire is not something to tame, Sagittarius. It's something to tend. When you treat it with reverence, it becomes the medicine your home has been waiting for. The same flame that once fueled your exhaustion will now become your source of serenity. Steady, luminous, alive. And one day soon you'll notice it. The house feels calmer. The arguments soften. The laughter returns. Because your inner light has remembered its true nature. Not a blaze of chaos, but a hearth of healing. So tonight, as you gaze at the candle flickering beside you, say softly to yourself, "My fire knows peace. My warmth is enough. I burn not to fight, but to shine." Chapter 4: Boundaries as Acts of Love. There is a quiet kind of courage that doesn't roar. It simply says no with grace. For Sagittarius women, that word often feels unnatural, almost guilty. You were born to say yes, yes to helping, yes to listening, yes to keeping the peace. Yet over time, every yes you whisper to others without pausing to check in with yourself chips away at your inner freedom, the very essence of who you are. You are ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, faith, and generosity. But even Jupiter knows that expansion requires balance. Without boundaries, generosity becomes depletion. Faith turns into fatigue. Sagittarius, you cannot keep holding up the world if you're running on an empty spirit. This is your cosmic reminder that boundaries are not walls. They are sacred doorways through which love can flow freely without drowning you. Think of your life as a sacred fire temple. Every time you take on one more task, absorb one more argument, or rescue one more situation, you throw another log onto the fire. At first it blazes beautifully, but soon the air grows thick, the heat suffocating. A true temple flame needs tending, it must breathe. Boundaries are that breath. They are the pauses between your giving, the silence that lets your light recover. Let's meet Renee, a 50-year-old Sagittarius mother whose grown children still leaned on her for every crisis, rent, heartbreak, emotional meltdowns. "I felt proud they still needed me," she admitted. But deep down I was crumbling. When her health began to falter, she realized something had to change. Guided by her birth chart, she noticed transiting Jupiter moving through her 6th house, the realm of wellness and daily rituals. It was her cosmic signal to create limits not from anger, but from love. She started small. Instead of answering every call immediately, she began setting hours when she was available to talk. Instead of offering solutions, she asked, "What do you think you should do?" At first, Renee said, they pushed back, they thought I'd stopped caring. But over time something beautiful happened. They began solving problems on their own. Our relationship stopped feeling like a rescue mission and started feeling like respect. That's the alchemy of Jupiter and midlife. Wisdom replacing martyrdom. Boundaries teach others to meet you where you are, not to take from you endlessly. They turn love from exhaustion into empowerment, for everyone involved. Astrologically, this phase often coincides with Saturn transiting through your 4th or 7th house, pushing you to re-examine the structure of your relationships. Saturn's message is clear. Love must include self-respect, or it collapses under its own weight. This doesn't mean closing your heart. It means protecting its rhythm. In the US, where independence is prized, women often struggle alone, believing asking for space equals failure. In Europe, where communal systems are weakening, many still internalize the guilt of needing boundaries. But you, Sagittarius, are meant to model a new kind of freedom, relational freedom. The ability to love fully without losing yourself. Here's your invitation to practice what I call the Sagittarius Energy Manifesto. Write down 2 columns. In the first, list what you're willing to give. Emotional support, guidance, compassion. In the second, list what drains you, constant conflict, emotional overfunctioning, guilt. Then whisper to yourself, I choose to give from overflow, not emptiness. Your family doesn't lose you when you set limits. They meet the truest version of you. Calmer, clearer, more radiant. You are teaching them that love without boundaries isn't love. It's dependency. True love thrives when each soul has space to breathe. And if you struggle to assert these limits, remember the archer's wisdom. Precision over power. You don't need to raise your voice. Your clarity is your strength. When you say no with serenity, the stars lean closer. Jupiter smiles. Boundaries are not barriers between you and your family. They're bridges that lead back to balance. They're the invisible fences that keep your sacred flame from burning out. And through them, your home learns a new kind of harmony. One where respect dances beside affection, and peace no longer feels like a distant luxury. Tonight, as you rest under Jupiter's vast sky, whisper softly, my love has edges, and that's how it stays strong. I honor my own light, and I let others honor theirs. And somewhere in that quiet declaration you'll feel it, the weight lift, the tension ease, and your Sagittarian heart exhale for the first time in years. Because you finally understand, protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's sacred. The freedom of forgiveness. There is a stillness that follows every storm. The kind of silence that doesn't ache anymore, but hums with relief. You've walked through it all, Sagittarius. The exhaustion, the misunderstandings, the guilt of saying no, the courage of saying yes to yourself. And now, in this moment, as your world begins to soften again, you realize something profound. Peace isn't found in fixing others. It's born from forgiving yourself. Forgiveness has always been Jupiter's quiet magic. It's not a grand gesture or a spiritual performance. It's a breath. A whisper that says, I did my best with what I knew. It's the freedom to release old stories. The ones where you were the rescuer, the caretaker, the peacemaker who carried everyone's burdens until you forgot your own joy. Forgiveness is where the archer lowers her bow, not in defeat but in grace. For Sagittarius women, forgiveness doesn't come easily. You love fiercely and you remember deeply. Every word ever thrown in anger still echoes somewhere in your chest. Every moment you lost your temper, every time you said too much or not enough still lingers like smoke. But the stars remind you, healing doesn't ask you to erase your past, only to see it differently. What you call mistakes, the universe calls initiations. What you call failure, Jupiter calls wisdom. Try this closing ritual. On a quiet night, light a small candle, your symbol of the inner fire you've learned to tend. Take a piece of paper and write 3 things you're ready to forgive. 1 for your family, 1 for the world, 1 for yourself. Whisper each aloud as you fold the page. I forgive. I release. I rise. Then burn the paper safely. Watching the smoke curl upward like prayers the universe will carry on your behalf. As the flame fades, close your eyes and imagine Jupiter above you. Vast, golden, radiant, sending waves of expansion through your heart. Feel that warmth spreading through your chest, your shoulders, your breath. It's the universe saying, you are enough. You always have been. Across continents, women like you are rediscovering this truth. They are tired of the endless proving, the invisible emotional labor, the unspoken expectations. They are learning that boundaries, forgiveness, and freedom are not separate paths. They are one road home. In the US, in Europe, in every culture where love has been confused with self-sacrifice, a quiet revolution is rising. And you, Sagittarius, are part of it. Your fire has changed now. It no longer burns to defend. It glows to guide. The woman who once felt trapped in conflict now stands taller, steadier, wiser. You no longer need to earn peace, you embody it. This is the true inheritance of Jupiter's blessing. To live in expansion, not exhaustion. Look at how far you've come. The fatigue that once clouded your mornings has turned into calm clarity. The resentment that once tightened your chest has softened into compassion. The chaos that once consumed your evenings now feels like a teacher you finally understood. You've learned that love doesn't always sound like harmony. Sometimes it sounds like truth. You've learned that freedom isn't distance, it's authenticity. And above all, you've learned that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the purest form of power. As you gaze at the night sky, your eternal map, your mirror whispers softly, I choose peace over pressure. I forgive and set us free. Love evolves and so do I. Let those words echo through the quiet, because this is your cosmic rebirth, Sagittarius. A new kind of strength, rooted not in control but in compassion. The same stars that once guided you through conflict now watch you in stillness, proud and glowing. You've turned exhaustion into enlightenment, tension into truth, and your home into a sanctuary of warmth again. The Archer's journey is complete. Not because she's done, but because she finally understands that every flame, every wound, every argument was leading her here, to herself.